شكرا يا ربي شكرا هديت قلبي شكرا نورت دربي شكرا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Welcome everyone to the talk where Masjid Al-Rashid hosts these virtual sessions live on Facebook for our benefit. This time, alhamdulillah, we have our guest who is no stranger to Edmonton or our community, Sheikh Daoud. But Sheikh Daoud, how are you doing?
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm doing good, alhamdulillah. Jazakumullahu khairan. How about yourselves? Are you guys still freezing out there? Is still a lot of snow on the ground?
You know what? The weather is actually getting better. We have some cold days, but the lawn is starting to show, alhamdulillah.
Getting better in Edmonton is about -10.
It's actually still a little bit colder than that sometimes, but alhamdulillah, we're used to it.
I was joking, but man, I was far.
Alhamdulillah. So Sheikhna, I'm actually just pulling up the live on the side so I can see the questions that are coming in. So for anyone that is joining us today, if you have any questions throughout this entire live stream, please leave them in the comment section below, and we'll try our best to get to them as soon as we can. So Sheikh, on Monday we held a live session centered more for the youth. And we touched on a lot of topics. It was more of like an introductory live session for the youth. But this time I want to focus on one thing that we touched on, and that is maintaining spiritual growth during this quarantine. And I thought that it would be good if we start off with this topic and maybe branch off into some other things. So what do you think of maybe what is the best way, in your opinion, for the youth to make use of this quarantine while still maintaining their spiritual growth?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah ba'd. So maintaining spiritual growth for the youth during this time is interesting because this is probably the time that they've spent most of their day and night hooked on TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, Netflix, and other platforms that are out there. So, subhanAllah, I think for the first thing to point out is probably the fact that a lot of people are just getting really, really tired of watching things. And I know for the first couple of weeks, people were happy. They're like, yo, I finished all of this and I finished that and I did this and I did that. And now they're just really bored. So I think maintaining spiritual connection during this time can actually be done using those platforms as well. Just to begin with, use the social media. Youth love social media. So find something beneficial. Try to have a balance. If you're going to spend 1 hour wasting your time watching something else, then spend an hour using your time watching something beneficial, right? Try to have that balance. So if you notice in your day, spending like 8 hours a day just on your phone or on a device, then split those 8 hours into 4 and have like 4 hours of benefit and 4 hours of just downtime. Which is still a lot of down. Some youth just, it's fun to just watch things and learn things online, while at the same time it can be very tiring. So, that's the first thing. Use the social media that we have out there. Another thing that I encourage people to do is, find, and I wouldn't really say a hobby, but find something that you like to do and perfect it. Right? So spiritual growth is not just in ibadah, in like recitation of Quran and doing adhkar and, listening to lectures and stuff like that. Spiritual growth is like perfecting yourself for the benefit of the rest of your life and the benefit of the rest of the community and society at large. So for example, if it just means like doing extra push-ups and getting strong because you're going to increase your health and benefit yourself to get stronger, will use that strength in the end, to benefit other people. So find little things that you like to do and just maximize on that. That would probably be the first thing that I would suggest.
No, for sure. And that's great. And we have, alhamdulillah, so much technology and so much resources out there to aid in so many of these things. Like you mentioned, at-home workouts. And I know a lot of people are struggling with staying fit and healthy without a gym, but And for some people, like here in Edmonton, it may be too cold for some people to go outside for a run or for a walk. So there are other alternatives though. And one thing I can maybe suggest is there's this app called 7 Minute Workout. Just 7 minutes of your day, you get a really good workout, helps you stay fit. I think it's a great thing for all the youth and all the adults, anyone to kind of make use of. So alhamdulillah, we got that going for us. Shaykhna, in terms of maintaining growth without the masjid, I think that's a tough part for a lot of people because at home there's so much distractions, and like you don't have everyday access to the imam, whereas you would have that access if you were to go to the masjid every day, for example. Ramadan is coming up, and this is a time where a lot of the youth really start to flood the masajid and make use of the mosque. uh, this Ramadan is going to be very different. And now we don't have that access to the imams as we normally would, and we don't have the access to the masajid of Allah Azza wa Jal. So how would you tackle that situation?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's double the problem, right? Because people want access to you, and then you need to try and give it to them in some way, shape, or form, which is what social media is great for in this sense, right? You actually have, I think, I think people have more access to us now than they did before, in the sense that, like, if I'm busy in my office, people would not bother me. They wouldn't even bother knocking on the door if the door is closed. But at home, it's like day or night, doesn't matter what you're doing, people are bothering you. There's no schedule, there's no time, So I think for those that might be struggling having access or getting access to their imams, I would suggest, first of all, imams to put out timings in the day on social media platforms, let people in the community know when they can reach out to them and how they can reach out to them. And then for whatever classes you have running from the masjid, create a schedule, which I'm sure Masjid al-Rashid already did because you guys are like professionals at this stuff, mashallah, tabarakallah. But, have that schedule that you don't just put out once, but, every 4 or 5 days, right? Just resend it to the entire community. Just put it out there so that people could see it, right? If people didn't see it the first few times you sent it, then put it out every 3 or 4 days. That way, people will have access to it. Your imams should have like timings where people can actually access them. So that means, they might be available online. Like I do live sessions on Instagram. People call in, they recite Quran. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you are, right? Where people will be able to access you. And so every single day at that time, people know, okay, he's online here. We can just simply go there and get access to him. Um, so that's one thing. The other thing is with regards to Ramadan that's coming up, subhanAllah, it is going to be difficult if we don't strategically plan everything out. And so create a schedule for as an individual, create a schedule for yourself as a family as well, and have some time where you're still going to relax, right? Still fine to relax a little bit during the month of Ramadan, but have your schedule where, okay, I'm going to dedicate X amount of time to Quran, Y amount of time to dhikr, Z amount of time to just reading something that's beneficial. It could be about Islam, it could be about anything else, it could be sciences, math, etc., right? So create a schedule and try to stick to that schedule. By following a schedule, you won't get bored, right? Because okay, religiously I need to follow this, so I'm gonna, at this time I have to be there. Like today at this time, man, me and you, we had to be here, whether we liked it or not, right? And to be honest, if I could have opted out of today, I would have, because I ended up going to do groceries, and going to do groceries now is like 4 or 5 hour ordeal. It's ridiculous. And then you can't find the products that you typically buy, right? So I mean, that's another thing during the month of Ramadan. Now, we get to step away from the things that we're used to in terms of eating and doing and saying, and we should also learn to try and step away from that, from the other things that we do in our lives. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely very different times, very difficult times. SubhanAllah, you mentioned stepping away from things. I was actually planning for myself for this Ramadan to step away from social media, but now with no masajid and everything being virtual, it's going to make things a little bit difficult, but we'll see, inshallah.
You know what? I actually had a dream. I woke up this morning, prayed Fajr. After Fajr, I went back to sleep, and I had this dream where a few of my friends and we like deleted all. So we basically deleted ourselves from all the WhatsApp groups that we were on, and I was like, I woke up thinking, wait, did that really happen? Like, oh my God, what just happened? But you know what? It's true. Every year during Ramadan, I think yourself, myself, lots of people, we will like step away from certain social media platforms or step away from certain WhatsApp groups. What I would suggest people to do this year is to add themselves to groups that are going to be beneficial to themselves and
Mhm.
remove themselves from groups that they aren't. And I actually started doing this already during this whole, self isolation time at home. There are certain groups I refuse to open. And I actually enjoy it. Like every day I look at WhatsApp and I have like, 1,700 messages in that group that I did not read, right? And the numbers every day just keep increasing. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to reach 2,000 messages, right? So it's kind of like a challenge for myself to see how many messages I can go without checking. And it's kind of cool. So you challenge yourself on it. And then I was thinking of like turning that into some sort of social media movement where, you take a screenshot of how many messages you didn't check and post it up on like TikTok and see if other people can beat you at it, right? But stuff like that where, you're not going to check your messages. So step away from the things that are not beneficial for you. But like you mentioned, everything's online right now. So stick to the platforms that you are going to use and remove yourself from the other ones or just refrain from checking them. Simple.
I think that's great advice and very practical too, especially in these times. So, you know this as much as the rest of the youth do, Yani. Ramadan is usually a time where a lot of youth that, let's say, struggle with their spirituality, uh, find the strength to really grow in this month. Someone that maybe normally doesn't pray at all will start praying during the month of Ramadan. Someone that normally never reads the Quran will start reading a little bit more during this month. You'll see that growth in spirituality, and sometimes, alhamdulillah, it lasts beyond Ramadan, and other times it kind of just dies with Ramadan ending. So, what do you think is the best approach for someone who really wants to improve because they're not happy with their level of spirituality right now? They want to improve, but they also want to sustain that improvement. They want to do it in a way that it can be a change for life, inshallah, and not just a spur of the moment only for Ramadan, and then after Ramadan you go back to your old life.
Yeah. So like I tell people all the time, every single year before Ramadan, I tell people to choose one thing, like just one thing, maximum three things, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but start with one. Choose one thing that you want to do this Ramadan that's different than all the other years, or something you always wanted to do and did do but never maintained. So, for example, if it's reciting one page of the Quran every single day, I'm not talking about reading a whole juz, just one page, right? So start with that and maintain that throughout the whole month of Ramadan and for the next 11 months of the year. So your goal should not just be, what am I going to do this Ramadan? Your goal should be, when Ramadan is over, will I realistically be able to maintain this? Because most of us are not, right? So most of us will say, now, once we go back to like regular schedule, I'm not going to read a juz of Quran a day. I can't do that, right? So instead of reaching goals where you're happy with during Ramadan, but then you're depressed with the next 11 months, choose a goal that you're going to be happy with during Ramadan and for the rest of the year. And that can be very simple. It could mean like, you know what, instead of reading Facebook posts or Twitter, tweets and stuff like that, instead of doing that, maybe it's, I'm just going to read a book every week. It doesn't matter what the book is, but get into the habit of reading, right? Reading things that are longer than 126 characters and stuff like that, right? Or a simple post. Read an actual book. And then every 4 or 5 books, you'll realize you pick up a book that is even more beneficial to you. And so you start increasing in your knowledge in that way. I think that's one thing that I would encourage a lot of people to do, and myself included. Like, I mean, alhamdulillah, I do a lot of reading of like, checking things and researching and so on and so forth. But, getting back into that routine of finishing one book after the other is absolutely important. For people that are struggling with finding more of themselves from a religious perspective throughout this month of Ramadan, it is going to be a little bit challenging. So, one thing that you could do is exactly what we're doing here. Like, find a buddy, right? Find a coach, someone who you can coach and they will coach you. So you share your goals with that other person. And people who are married, usually husband and wife, do this together. Parents will do it with their children. But once you're a young adult, youth, teenagers, going to college, university, you don't really have anyone that you can pair up with and coach, and they can coach you. So just find someone who you're going to be in touch with throughout the month of Ramadan from a more professional angle, and treat Ramadan as an actual profession, right? Like your deen is your profession, it's your life, it's what you have to do. It's more important than your studies, it's more important than your job, it's more important than everything else, right? So treat it as though it's a profession, and inshallah you'll notice that, like, that person, whoever actually does this with their coach, whenever they fall short or they slip up, like, oh man, you know what, I got tired today, I didn't finish the third page, right, of my recitation, for example. The coach will just be like, all right, fine, just do it now, right? Open up your Quran and just read it, man. Just go ahead, do it. It'll take you 10 minutes, right? And they open up the Quran, they read that page, and they're done. Even though for most people, reading a page takes like 2 minutes, right? But some people read slow, so we have to respect that as well. Not everyone's at the same level.
For sure. And I think understanding what level we are at really goes a long way in helping us uh, persevere and not burn out. Like I know from personal experience with Ramadan, we all get so excited and we have all these goals. We see what the people around us are doing. And I say, hey, I can do that. And then I push really hard. And for the first half of Ramadan, I'm doing great, alhamdulillah, maybe the first 20 days. But then the last 10 days comes, the most important part of Ramadan, and I'm already burnt out. And I'm like pretty much wasting the best opportunity of the year, you
And
know.
you
So
you notice the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do the opposite. The first 10 days he would take it easy. The middle 10 days he would just push a little bit harder, and the last 10 days was like, give it all you got. Most Muslims nowadays, we reach Ramadan, we're like, yes, it's Ramadan, and we're like, awake all day, awake all, we're like, Ramadan, food, whose house are we going to, this and that. Of course, this year it's going to be different, but I think it's going to be different in a sense that people will be wasting a lot of their time instead of like meeting people and eating and so on. I think that was a better thing to do than what people are going to be doing now, just watching like series of things on Netflix and so on. So yeah, finding yourself is absolutely important, subhanallah, because everyone is at a different level.
no, for sure, 100%. Now, um, we see this a lot, and sometimes when someone wants to make that change, and it's a good change to make, you want to get closer to the deen, you want to become a better Muslim, you want to kind of change the way you live your life, because maybe you're falling into the haram on a regular basis, or you have some bad habits, and we take that step forward, but for some reason we kind of take it too far, to the point where we become very extreme in everything that we do. We become very extreme in our thought process. It seems like for some reason, some people, the more religious they become, the less they smile, the more strict they are on others. Like it's unfortunate though, because Islam is a beautiful religion. And when we look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his example, we see that he was a man that always used to smile, always so merciful and kind. So like, how can we kind of protect ourselves from going too far?
Yeah.
Like any accountability coach or something?
I mean, yeah, the accountability coach, but also like, look, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't receive the revelation of the Quran in one chunk, right? The Quran it didn't just like, Jibril came and said, here, live by this, right? I mean, it came step by step. And over a span of 23 years, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, some of them, they used to drink, and that was the norm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gradually like eliminated that from the lifestyle of a Muslim, where they no longer drink alcohol, they no longer get intoxicated, and so on. And so the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they took Islam step by step, slowly improving themselves. Nowadays, as Muslims, we're especially, you know, it's actually a downside to having so much access to knowledge and social media and videos and so on, because there's too much knowledge that's being shared and not enough time for people to grasp it and implement it. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, at one point in time, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they asked him, like, aren't you going to teach us something? Like, it was after Salah, and they asked him, share something with us. And he said, no, because when you share too much or you teach too much, it becomes a burden upon the people, or it's too difficult for them. And so that's important for us to recognize in our lives, is that we take a step back. The Prophet ﷺ didn't always teach, like you see in the masjid now, like after every salah there has to be a reminder. No, there doesn't have to be, right? And I remember saying this in Masjid al-Rashid when we had a board meeting during Ramadan, 2 years ago, and they were like, okay, what about this salah? What about that salah? I'm like, guys, take it easy. Like, I could understand some people will come at some prayers and others come at others, but take it easy with the reminders. Don't share too much. Just create like a nice community environment where people are happy to simply see each other. That's what the Sahaba radiallahu anhum enjoyed, right? So for people nowadays who are going to the extreme and they're like online and taking courses, they're like, oh yeah, now I could finish this course and do this class and attend this seminar and so on, and they're like becoming super passionate and zealous. I would actually warn them to be careful of hitting a wall, right? They'll reach a point where it's just too much for them, and they're overwhelmed with the amount of knowledge. They're overwhelmed with everything that's going on around them, and with the amount of classes that they can take, that they end up becoming a little too extreme and narrow-minded, and they forget the element of mercy in our deen. And that happens to a lot of students who go abroad and study. There's this like drive to learn Islam, which is fine and good, right? Because you need it. You need that self motivation. But when you get too deep in it, you start to lose focus. And then everything around you looks like it's haram. And that's why we have this term, the haram police, right?
Yeah.
Everything around you seems like, oh my God, this is wrong. That person's doing this wrong. That person's pants are too long. This sister's hijab is see through. Astaghfirullah, she's doing this. And mashallah, tabarakallah, that brother, he hasn't touched his beard because of self isolation, and everyone's praising people because they're like, mashallah, now. But subhanallah, everything becomes negative when you go too hard at it. And you forget that the Prophet ﷺ was sent, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, as a mercy to others, to all of the creation of Allah. So take a step back. People who are learning too much, have that balance, right? Don't spend so much time. And that's why I said before, it doesn't have to be an Islamic book, right? If you're going to read something, just read, right? Just don't be on social media. Don't be in front of a screen. Open up a book. Or, if you're going to use your tablet to read, that's fine. But read a book that's, something that's going to be of benefit to you, or something that will just, distract your mind from all the pressures of the world that's happening around us.
No, for sure. And you touched on something important that I kind of want to bring up. It's a little bit of a touchy situation, but I think it's important to bring up, especially for the youth and especially in our current climate now with everything being online. You mentioned it yourself, like the Quran isn't coming to us bit by bit. We have the whole Quran. We have a vast ocean of knowledge on the internet. And the reality is today, anyone can go on the internet and post whatever they want and label it Islam, label it authentic, or whatever it may be. And I'm not saying that the internet is a bad place for seeking knowledge. I think the internet is a great tool if it's used properly. But sometimes, we may stumble across a source or maybe a lecture or something, a website, which could actually have some dangerous views or unauthentic views. And it kind of corrupts our knowledge. So this is, I know, maybe a little bit of a tough situation to deal with, but do you have any advice for the youth on how to avoid that? Any like maybe general guidelines or rules to follow when it comes to seeking knowledge on the internet?
Of course, absolutely. You brought up something really important. And you know what I usually tell people is your comment isn't going to change anything, right? Keyboard warriors, nobody likes them. And the people who are doing something wrong, you might say, no, but akhi, this is the truth. This is the haqq. I need to change it. I need to say something about it. Yes, but the Prophet ﷺ showed us how to change things, right? First of all, if there's something that's wrong, إِذَا رَأَى مِنْكُم مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ, right? If you see something that's wrong, then first of all, if you have the ability, if you're in a position of authority, right? And when you read through the explanation of the hadith, it's referring to people who are in positions of authority, that have the ability to physically change that situation. So, for example, I don't own Facebook. I can't do anything. You might say, all right, so we'll just file a complaint. All right, go ahead, file a complaint, right? But leave it at that. You don't need to say anything. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. So if you're not able to physically change something, then change it with your tongue, as in say something about it, right? فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. And then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you can't change it physically and you can't change it verbally, then change it in your heart, as in dislike it in your heart, right? And I think when it comes to social media and seeing things online and comments and stuff, I challenge every single person out there who's, in fact, everyone who's watching, myself included, I challenge you to refrain from commenting on anything: WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, etc. Refrain from commenting on it for one day. And if you can do it for a day, mashallah, tabarakallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, then do it for 2 days. And try to work your way up to 1 week. If you can get 1 week of not commenting on other people's posts, then I think you have a pretty strong grasp of your ability to navigate through social media. But the problem is everyone feels that they have to comment. Like everyone feels they have to click like. Everyone feels they have to subscribe. Everyone feels they have to forward. Everyone feels they need to share something. And subhanAllah, you'll notice it even on WhatsApp. People will receive something and they'll just share it with others. They didn't even watch it yet. They just receive it and share it. Or someone says, check this out, it happened in Makkah yesterday. They'll forward it. They don't even know what happened in Makkah yesterday. What was it? The adhan was called. And people are like, all right, what's the big deal? And then it's called every day, multiple times a day, right? But it's just that it's the adrenaline that's rushing through us, the dopamine that's released when a message comes in or you see something, and that need to comment. So I challenge everyone, subhanallah, don't comment on any posts for a day, and try to work your way up to a week. And secondly, no one likes keyboard warriors. And ultimately, you can't really change a person by simply typing something online. It happens sometimes, right? It works for some people. They'll be like, oh, your post really helped me and so on. But usually haters don't really have much of a benefit towards others. Okay. So try to refrain from that and just simply control yourself online. Know that there's going to be fitna. Know that there's going to be negativity, right? There are going to be people saying things that you're not happy with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to protect this deen anyways, right? We don't have to think that we are the saviors of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do what he wills, right? So every person who's in a position where they can make that change, like for example, an imam posts something that the community is not happy with. Why is the whole community commenting on it? The whole community should be consulting with the other imams in their community and saying, hey, you know what, this comment was said. Maybe you brothers and other sisters and so on who are in positions of authority can advise him on this. And when people of a higher position come and advise someone, usually you see the change. But when every single person comments on it, it's useless. In fact, is drawing attention to that person's post and is actually making them more popular.
That's true, subhanAllah, especially in today's world. Like that traffic on social media is really important to drive up the views and like more people seeing it, and you're exposing more people to what you think may be wrong. So it's working counterintuitive, right? So Sheikhna, I think I've pretty much asked the gist of what I want to ask. I want to focus mainly on the youth. I want to focus mainly on social media, using the social media in quarantine for Islamic benefit and spiritual growth, and maintaining that growth without the masjid. Before I move on to question and answer, and I'm reminding everyone that's listening and watching today, if you have any questions that you would like answered, you can please leave them in the comment section. We'll get to those. Do you have any final remarks or any final piece of advice you would give specifically to the youth this time?
Advice specifically to the youth. Take full advantage of every situation that you're dealt. You look back on this when you're an adult and think to yourself, you know what, children are spoiled. They don't know what we went through, right? So subhanAllah, this time is a prime time, right? It's a prime time to activate yourselves in a way that, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us right now with so much. Time, we have loads of it. People are bored. And honestly, if you're bored, reach out to your imam, because I'm sure he's like overloaded. I got overloaded, man. I have no time for anything, because people are stuck at home. Like husband and wife are arguing, children are arguing, people are upset. They're like, I can't take this. I need to get out. This brother messaged me during the first week of that whole isolation, which was like what, 4 or 5 weeks ago. He messaged me and he's like, you know what, Sheikh, I've done my research. I have a higher chance of dying from stress at home due to arguing with my wife than I do of COVID-19. So I might as well just go out and about with my life. And if I contract it, well, I have better chances of surviving through that than I do of dying of stress of being at home with my wife. I was like, subhanAllah. And I'm not joking. This brother did a full-fledged research and emailed it to me, like stats, everything. And so, subhanAllah, like, with youth, like, take advantage of this time. You have time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath by time in the Quran. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Right? We're at a state of loss. Why? Because now we have loads of time and we don't know what to do with it. And there will be a point in time in our lives where we look back and say, man, if I could have started a business during this time, that would have been perfect. If I could have learned the stock market, that would have been perfect. If I could have, read a few books, that would have been great. If I could have gone and done some social, assistance to other people, to elderly or people who are sick, that would have been amazing. And so you have time. The other thing we have is um, lack of toilet paper. But the point I mean by lack of toilet paper is we realize how much we took things for granted.
Oh, big time.
Youth, look, there are things that we take for granted, right? We have lots of stuff. Start sifting through the things you have. Keep 5 shirts, 5 pairs of pants, 5 sweaters, or 7 or 10, and then get rid of the rest, right? Go through your things. Start recognizing that you're not going to live this life forever. And the fact that we're stuck indoors and the only one that can help us through this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So technically Allah's reminding us, hey, I could take you away any minute now. You can get COVID-19 and you're gone, right? So what are we holding on to all our stuff for? For nothing, right? So start getting rid of things. All the youth that are out there, look, you probably have lots of devices and lots of things and clothing and stuff. Give it away. Set it aside. Now is not a time many places are accepting things, but put in your garage, stick it in a bag or a box and get it out of sight. Start to clean up your life a little bit, right? And another thing that I would suggest our youth to do is to stay groomed. Right? During this time, people are like, in their pajamas for 4 or 5 days, the same pajamas, right? They're not like grooming themselves, they're not doing their hair, they're not looking good, they're not feeling good. You're gonna feel down and depressed if you don't groom yourself. So get up, pretend like you're going out to school or you're going out to university or whatever. Get yourself done up, put your perfume on, do your hair, tie your hijab, look good and feel good, right? And take care of yourself. And, subhanAllah, I think of it during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they went through things like we're going through now, where, they would mind their own business and do their own thing. Imagine how easy it was to grow a beard at their time. People were just like in self-isolation a lot of the time because there weren't as many social things for them to do. So, right now is a time to look after ourselves, our health, our well-being, mental sanity and stuff like that. And just taking a shower daily and grooming yourself and looking good and making yourself feel good is good for yourself. And you'll feel positive, inshallah, to go ahead and tackle Ramadan.
No, absolutely. And I think that's great advice, especially for this time. So Sheikh, I think actually we're gonna be taking it easy on you today. There is no ocean of questions for this live session. I think people, alhamdulillah, I think we did a good job tackling some really important topics. I think we were very concise with what we wanted to say. So I want to thank you for your time. I really enjoyed doing this with you, and I hope that inshallah when things calm down, we can see you and the family again here in Edmonton.
And whatever community members you see that we know, give our salam to them,
inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, Shaykhna, and take care.
You too. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.